Hello, everybody. I am Jarrett Ross, the Genie Vlogger, and welcome to another Professional Genealogist Reacts live stream. Today's live stream, I'll kind of be reacting to my newest main channel video. I don't know if we're going to actually watch through it. Maybe we will, but I figured at the very least we'll talk about it, and figured this might be a way to get some of the new people who are finding my channel to also find my secondary channel. So we'll see how it goes today. But I'm also planning to answer questions. So as usual, as I'm going through, if you do have a question you'd like me to answer, just ask it in chat. As always, I don't guarantee I'll be able to answer all the questions, but if you do a super chat for your question, I do guarantee I will answer those. Biggest reason being I can actually see where it ends up on the screen, whereas if chat gets a little crazy, it can be hard to keep up with all the questions. So seems like we're starting out a little slow today with the number of people. So we'll, hopefully everyone will start trickling in soon. But we'll do our typical hellos and then start kind of getting into it. So Anna Tommaso coming in from Western New York, who I feel like you have the record for first comment more than anybody else. Like I feel like most of the time you're usually one of the first comments. So always wonderful to have you. And another person I see here all the time, Julia Joyce, coming in from North Baddesley, England. Hello, Julia. Thank you for joining as usual. And one of our typical Scandinavian representation as well, Stig, coming in from Oslo, Norway. Hello, Stig. Thank you for joining. And some of our Dutch representation, Nick Brokema, Goedenavond vanuit Groningen. Alles goed daar? Ja, alles goed hier. En how is het met jou daar in Groningen? Thank you for joining. As always, Sharon, hello from New York. Another one. I feel like we're starting out with a lot of actually every comment I see so far, people that I recognize. So good to have you as well, Sharon, coming in from New York. We have our Faroe Islands representation, Weeping Scorpion. Hello, everybody. Hope everyone is doing great. Cannot stay long, but thought I would put in a few minutes. Well, thank you for joining, even if just for a few minutes. So you can always watch back again too, Weeping Scorpion, but thanks. Then we have A.T. Goldsmith. Hello again from Poznan, Poland. Hello, A.T. Goldsmith. Another person that I recognize in the chats and the comments. And of course, another one as well, Drea, coming in. Last week of your genealogy class. Very cool. I hope it's been going really, really well and you're having a lot of fun. And then Alexandra coming in from Koblenz, Germany. Oh, I'm assuming it's Koblenz as usual, but maybe not. Maybe you're somewhere else in Germany today. But hello, Alexandra. And Destruction Cat. Hello from Croatia. Hello, Destruction Cat. One of our wonderful Balkan representations. I feel like even though it's not like a large audience I am definitely a worldwide audience. And I love that about everybody. Really, we're a worldwide community. What can I say? And then, of course, our wonderful mod, Charlie, coming in. Evening, Charlie. Always wonderful to have you. Someone who constantly helps me do so much stuff. I honestly would not be able to do as much as I do if it wasn't for Charlie, Matt, and Blackberry Rose, who all do so much to help me. And of course, in the beginning, Matteo. I was thinking of a different researcher in Italy, but Matteo, who doesn't come around as much, unfortunately, but I see him every now and again in the genealogy Discord server, but still. Catherine, my cousin, Chag Sukkot Sameach. Thank you very much. Chag Sukkot Sameach to you too. Happy Sukkot. Fall is in full swing and it's awesome. And then we have some Twitch representation. Valdemies, hello from Finland. So wonderful to have some of that Finnish representation in here too, because I feel like we do get a lot of the Scandinavian representation, but not as much on the Finnish side of things. So awesome to have you. It's been great. That's awesome to hear that you're enjoying the genealogy class. Then we have Alan in here. Greetings, Alan. Good to have you as well. Thank you for joining. And I was right, Koblenz. You have a great memory. By the way, YouTube did not notify me today about the stream. Yeah, I was wondering why things were starting out kind of slow, and we picked up pretty quick in the first 10 minutes. So I don't know. YouTube's so weird with that algorithm, but you're here now, so that's great. Karma Gal coming in from Nebraska. Hello, Karma Gal, one of my wonderful Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for being here. And also a Discord server member who is quite active there too. So I don't know if anyone wants to post the Discord link, but if you do, I'll put it up there. Hello, KRC Maine, coming in from Maine. Good to have you. And then we have Heidi Chalfont. Hello, Heidi. Thank you for joining. PZ, hi again from East LA. I was fascinated to hear that you had family who lived out here. Yeah, well, I was born in LA, not East LA. I was born up in the valley in Tarzana. And then I have a lot of family all around there. But yeah, what I mentioned last week is that my great grandfather is buried in Boyle Heights. And then I do have some other cousins who live out in East LA. One of my cousins actually lives, I think, only like a couple of blocks away from Dodger Stadium. So yeah, very, very, very cool to have you, PZ. But yeah, I do have a lot of LA connections. So, I'm a LA born. Didn't live there long. Got out by the time I was 5. But hey, Distraction Cat, same. I saw notification from Discord, not YouTube. Yeah, I don't know. That's weird. But that's one reason why I do constantly have that. Why I have the bots that do the announcements on the main channel, but then the absolutely amazing admins and mods I mentioned before, Charlie, Matt, Blackberry Rose, they constantly will be posting that stuff to help me out in there too. So it's a great way to keep notifications going. But if you aren't subscribed and have the bell for notifications on YouTube, definitely do that. I don't know if there's something equivalent on Twitch, but also if you don't know, I'm streaming through Twitch. So if you like Twitch as well, definitely follow me there. If you like YouTube, but you don't have a Twitch account, follow me on Twitch, but watch me on YouTube. And if you're on Twitch, follow me on YouTube. Just help me out. Just help me out. But okay, so the main thing that we'll talk about today is the new video on my main channel about Max Miller's family, something I have been spending, I guess it's almost 2 years, if not longer, that I've been working on this. And so much work that I literally have not put as much work into a video as I did the video that just came out. It has been so much. So let me see if I can get that pulled up. Maven, any update on the Danielson Donaldson guy? So this is from the first episode that I did on Max Miller's family. And no update yet. Obviously after we had Max's parents do the DNA tests, and especially after identifying Max's maternal grandfather's family, that meant we could really isolate the paternal side, which is what the maternal grandfather side, or the maternal grandmother's side. It's so hard to keep here. I'm going to pull up the family tree, and that'll make it a lot easier for us to follow along. But no update yet. We are working on it. I know that this is something that Michael Waz was helping me out with, who was featured in the first episode. And actually, he talked about this. He'd helped me on the original research with it. But I think both he and I have not really focused that much on this at all. For one, he is crazy busy doing all sorts of amazing things up in New York. And then me, I'm busy doing all this stuff on YouTube. So, okay, let's get it to, do that. Okay. So I should say, I think there's no way for me to talk about this stuff without spoilers. So just, I guess, a warning for anyone watching who has not yet seen the video on Max Miller's family. If you don't want it to be spoiled, I'm going to be revealing some stuff today. But obviously, if you haven't watched it yet and you're not too big about, you don't worry too much about spoilers, I think it's still quite an enjoyable video to watch, even once you kind of know what the answers are, because the stories are interesting. So with that said, I'm going to show the tree. So let's get that pulled up. Okay. Then we're going to do some adjustments, see which. Let's get this edited. I think that should be good like that. Okay. That'll be good like that. Okay, so this is the tree. And so the first episode that I did was on Max's mother's mother, Virginia. That was the focus. And so we went into that ancestry, and what Maven was asking about, which I'll pull that up, is when we built out the tree for Harold Danielson Holtz, we basically found that it seemed that it's more likely that he is not a son of Holbrook Holtz and Elizabeth Curry, as all the documentation would indicate, but actually a son of Elizabeth Curry and this Harold J. Danielson, which there was a lot of crazy stuff going on. Some records said Elizabeth and Harold were siblings, but through everything, it was definitely not siblings. If you go and watch the first episode, it'll explain a lot more of that. But this is the question that was being asked. But I will say that one thing was we definitely noticed there is some significant Scandinavian in the admixture that would definitely seem on par with that being the case, being basically that, Max's great grandfather Harold would have been half Scandinavian, and then with Elizabeth Curry, that was a question too. Like, there's basically a lot of question marks on this side. One thing we didn't get into in the video was Florence Kelly, Virginia's mother, which is a bit more straightforward, although not quite as straightforward, because this is a family that is basically an Irish family. And you can kind of tell from the names, and basically it was kind of a brick wall in of itself. So yeah, let's see. Glad to watch the stream. Rusin was able to get back to the 1500s. He was a parish priest. Very cool. Very cool. So excited to see the latest video drop. It was so interesting. I'm so happy to hear that. Yeah, after spending so much time on it, I was like, if this thing flops, that'll be so sad. It's so sad. I loved Max's video. Glad he now knows his family tree. Yeah, and we got into the family tree real deep. Like, I don't know how many more episodes I'll have coming out on his tree, but I'm going to have some shorts lined up, I think, because I'm going to try to do some more short sort of videos. And then I'm also going to have 3 or 4, maybe 5 more episodes on his family tree. We'll have to see what I decide to get into. Even with this video, the newest one that came out, which we get into the maternal grandfather, Robert Paul James. His mother, Bertha Cowling, comes from an expansive Cornish ancestry, which the Cornish records, oh my gosh, they were ridiculously expansive, and there was so much that we could build, and even more. If anyone is familiar with Cornish families, the Tremaine family, this family is like a famous family. There's a book that traces their family ancestry back to the 1200s, and there's so much to talk about. So I may end up actually even doing a video on the deeper Cornish ancestry. I was considering doing it in this video, but if you saw the video, it's 30 minutes long already, and I had to cut down a lot of stuff just to get down to that 30 minutes, because that's one thing I'm trying to do. Is I'm trying to keep my videos much shorter, because I've had a few videos that have gotten up to past 40 minutes and an hour and stuff, and it just doesn't seem to work well with everything. So yeah. Yeah. All right, let's go see. After putting some time into that Danielson guy, I don't think he was Norwegian. Okay. Yeah, I like I said, I'd put that research on the back burner, so it's been a while since I've delved into it. The AI inspiration on me, for any AI nerds out there that are like, you said delve. But yeah, so it's possible. Yeah, I know we had like Navy records for him. I think it was the Norway Navy, maybe, was it? Or I have to look back. It's been a minute. But yeah, because that first video came out over a year ago, I think. Julia, I really enjoyed the video on Saturday. I already subscribed to Max Miller Cooking Channel. Yeah, Matt, I think it's more surprising to me people that find out about Max's channel from my channel than people finding out about my channel from Max's channel. Because Max is way bigger than me. He's like 2 some odd million. He's a New York Times bestseller. Very, very big name compared to me. So, I'm honestly honored that, he agreed to do all this stuff. Daniel M, bit late, evening from Bristol, UK. Thank you for joining, Daniel. Good to have you as always. Valdemies, I really enjoyed your video. It's great to see your DNA investigation in action and how to figure out the connections. Yeah, that's great to hear. When I first started this series, the YouTuber Family Tree series, it was originally thought as pure tutorial. So if you go and watch the first season that I did on Sam Arono's family, Sam Arono being a YouTuber who does history of Jewish history and just amazing channel. Definitely check out Sam's channel. But if you watch those videos, very different than what I do now, because the focus was much more tutorial. And as I went through it, and especially this season when I had Mr. Beat as my guest and watched him react to the episodes, I started to realize maybe I should cut down the tutorial part of it and play up the story narrative side of it. And so you start to see, as we get through Mr. Beat season, it changes a bit more narrative. And then I think Useful Chart season was after that. And then the episode that I did on Joseph Hall Patton from Cynical Historian, the son of Pawn Stars, what do they call him? What do they call Mark Hall Patton? The Beard of Knowledge. So the Beard of Knowledge from Pawn Stars is the father of Joe from Cynical Historian. And Joe is a guest on the channel too. And so the first episode I did on his family was the first that was that like full-on narrative with music and everything. So if you watch the first 3 seasons I did, Sam Arono, Mr. Beat, and then Useful Charts, all of theirs is, you can tell it's much more on the tutorial side. I think some people may really enjoy that because it is, I go in depth. I'm like, okay, so here we have the census record, and here's what you can get from it. Here's what you need to understand about it. As opposed to now I'm like, and then we found this in this census record. And I don't talk about how I found it as much, not as in depth, but yeah. So I'm very happy to hear from folks that enjoyed the new video. So Whipping Scorpion, Harold Danielson does not get much more Nordic than that. Yeah. Well, almost. Doesn't have to be, but makes it very likely. Yeah, I think any of those sons. Charlie, my paternal line is Cornish. I've mainly gone back to the 18th century on those lines. Interesting. Yeah, I got pretty far back on most of the lines, not all of them. The Tremaine line, I think, was the one that was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But yeah. If Danielson is Swedish or Danish, I could help. Oh, cool. Well, I may have to get in touch with you then. If we get back into that, because I know there's so much stuff that I'll be covering in future episodes, which I'm going to give some sneak previews today of maybe some of the stuff to expect coming up. Oof, starting to get a little cold out here, so the allergies kicking in, or not the allergies as much. Okay, Stig. So I just found one Norwegian guy born in 1897 called Harold Danielson, and he died in Norway. So probably not that guy. Yeah, probably not. Could be, but probably not. I don't remember everything that we had on Harold Danielson. So, okay, yeah, we have his death, 1936. So, oh wait, I'm going to have to log in. Boo, 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 boo. All right. So yeah, this was the Navy record that we had found. So Harold Danielson. So yeah, one of the reasons why I'm probably not as not recalling this stuff as well is because this was one of the things that Michael Waz really kind of took the charge in looking into. And this is one of the things that I do with my videos. And one of the reasons, especially why I try to feature and interview people that help me with this research in various ways, is because to do this in-depth stuff, you have to be collaborative. It's a lot harder, I think, for some people when, you don't have the connections. I mean, I've been doing genealogy really in depth since 2009. And I've been a professional genealogist since 2017. So I kind of have a huge network of people I can pull on who are top echelon in the field. But even so, there's actually a lot of ways that people can get help from people just in the same top tier of genealogists, especially Facebook groups. For people that don't realize, Facebook is like a hub for genealogy because so many groups developed on there, and they honestly seem to keep growing. Now, I think, there's Discord servers are probably going to be, the next big things. The genealogy Discord server is really big one. I mean, I'm kind of surprised at how mine is in a sense, but, being, I guess, is how big it is, but I don't remember how many I had last, but it was a couple of hundred people. So, okay, let's look. Found someone on WikiTree who added the parents of my 6th great grandmother. The source being handed down family tree, but the birthplace is incorrect. Should be England. He put Kentucky. Yeah, so that's actually one of the workarounds on WikiTree that I think a lot of WikiTreeers probably don't hope people figure out. In that, WikiTree is done in a way to make it very difficult to add anything if you don't have sourcing for it. But there are ways to kind of get around it, and that's kind of one of the ways is like just saying the source is handed down family tree, or, just know it. I mean, you can kind of get stuff in there, but I also don't know exactly how WikiTree handles that kind of stuff. If they, get rid of it, or if they put any sort of thing on there, kind of like Wikipedia has with, needs more citations or something like that. But yeah, that's one of the things with collaborative trees, though. That's the downside. You get people going in and adding stuff that just is not correct. All right. Bring up that view again for people jumping in. Let's see. And yeah, if anyone has any questions about the new episode, definitely ask. I think we have a lot more people in here than when I first said this, so I should say, if you have any questions that pertains to the episode, definitely ask. If you have any general genealogy or DNA questions, feel free to ask those too. I do not guarantee that I will answer all the questions, just because I don't catch them all sometimes. But if you do a super chat through YouTube, I do guarantee I will answer those. Biggest reason being it's actually really easy to keep track of those, whereas if chat gets really quick, it's hard to keep track of all the questions sometimes. Of course, if you don't want to do super chat and I miss one of your questions, you can ask it again. So, okay. Oh, yeah. Let's jump forward. Daniel, as a Brit, I have no idea who Max Miller is, but he is hot. Well, I know that he played Prince Charming at Disney, was it? I think. I can't remember exactly where he did it, but I know that he did that. And then what else did he? I want to say he did acting or something else, but I might be wrong. But yeah, that's funny. Berke Sulek, hello from Amsterdam. Hello. As you might remember, I am Turkish. Now I've discovered that my paternal haplogroup is EV13. Does it really mean anything, or is it too far back in time? EV13. Let's see. Oh yeah, we did pull this up. I remember that now. So the question, does it really mean it? Well, I mean, it does mean something. It's just that it means something. Oh wait, I don't think that's it. That's something. That's something else. Okay, but it means something just in terms of what the EV13 haplogroup is. It's just that if it's not a very, trying to think of how to word this, but basically if it's too far back in time, in a sense. So if it's EV13 traces back 2,000 or 3,000 years, then it doesn't really tell you much of what happened in the past 2,000 to 3,000 years, but it does give you an idea of what happened 2,000, 3,000 years ago, and then further back. So you get a much, more generalized idea. Whereas if you do a much more nuanced test, let's see, why full? So if you do a much more newer test, then that may give you a much better idea. So, okay, so EV13 formed about 8,100 years before present to most recent common ancestor about 4,800 years before present, that being at a 95% confidence. Okay. So at a 95% confidence. So, that is pretty far back. Let's take a look at some of the further info. Load. There we go. So, I mean, map-wise, it gives you an idea of, where the most people, here this is who's tested on YFull, which can be biased based on the, people testing. If it's only people, if it's largely people that are testing from the English-speaking world, there's going to be a bias of people with, English-speaking ancestries. And, oh, yeah. So, yes, you can see these are all the different people that are under it, the STRs associated, the SNPs. And so the two most recent common ancestors. It wasn't the map. I thought there was a way to get better map, but let's look at a chart. So this is another way to kind of look at it, which is too small. Okay. Where's Papa? So this is kind of the family tree way of looking at a haplogroup. So here's your EV13, most recent common ancestor about 4,800 years ago. And then from EV13, there was this haplogroup, this EZ1057, where there's 3 terminal SNPs. Or I don't know if they'd all be defined terminal, I guess, but 3 SNPs associated. And then that has a brother branch way over here, somewhere right here, where there's 26 SNPs, and then that has these descendants, whereas this other branch you can see over here expands out much, much more. All of these are descending from this one, so this is what haplogroups are. It's just a family tree up the paternal line for everybody. So you're somewhere in here, and if you can do a big Y test or whole genome sequencing or something to get the full thing, so here's a simplified chart of the tree. Let's go back to the classic view. So that's EV13. So if you can do something to get a much more defined haplogroup, and then get into these different trees. So there's the YFull tree, there's the family tree DNA phylogenetic tree, there's Eupedia's tree. But you can see, the samples, this is just a person. And you can see all of the different tests that people have done. So it's not just family tree DNA where you can get the in-depth Y DNA testing. Nebula is where I did my in-depth Y testing. So it's a whole genome sequence test, which whole genome sequencing does autosomal DNA, mitochondrial DNA, and Y DNA, whereas this family tree DNA Y500, that is only doing the Y chromosome. And then over here, statistics, you can see the details on it. So like with Nebula, it has a much bigger, source of data. And the 49X, that's the times of reading it. So the number of reads through. But you can see, all these different people that have tested. And if you can test, then you can compare and do all that. So you'd get something out of having the haplogroup, but it certainly doesn't tell you a ton, I guess. It's much more, it gives you a good idea of your more ancient history. Sandy Ross, hello from the early voting wait line. Sigh. Yeah, hi, Mom. Yeah, I'm not planning to vote until I think next week or the week after. Yeah, try to wait for lines to kind of calm down. Karma at Daniel. He has a YouTube channel called Tasting History. He also has a cookbook. He tries recipes out from history, some back to the Byzantine era. Yeah, so he released an episode today, which was talking about the episode I released on his family earlier this week. And the episode he did today was about the food the Titanic survivors ate on the Carpathia, which was really interesting. Or wait, was that, or was it, I think, actually, hold on. I might be mixing that up. Did I mix that up? I might mix that up. That might have been his. Okay, yeah, that was from, okay, it was the Titanic survivors when they arrived in New York. The video I was thinking of, so a few days ago, he released one on the soup that they ate on the Carpathia. This one was when they arrived. Okay. Still very interesting. Super interesting. Drea, proud member of DNA Detectives. Yeah, one of the Facebook groups. Very, very good. All right, let's see. Alexandra, what was the biggest challenge while doing this investigation? The biggest challenge, I think, was getting the confirmation of things. Because I guess when I say the confirmation of things, most specifically, confirming Robert Paul James's father, Smith Fuller Neighbors. So with identifying Smith Fuller Neighbors, we got the name because the birth certificate for Robert Paul James said Fuller Neighbors, and it was obvious it was this Fuller Neighbors who is the husband of Bertha's sister, Lillian. So it was a name I had already recognized once the birth certificate came in, because once I had received the birth certificate, just like I have it in the video, it was after I had already identified and confirmed Bertha Cowling as Max's grandfather's mother. So that was confirmed. But then with the father, once we had the mother confirmed, I tried to use DNA to figure it out, which I talk about in the video, and I identified a guy who was a cousin of Smith Fuller Neighbors. So we're gonna, no, it's not through that side. No, not through that side. Through this side. Put this down. So Smith Fuller Neighbors has this cousin, this Charles Edward McNatt, who was the first. When I did DNA, everything pointed to him being the most likely candidate. It didn't point to him being the only candidate, but the most likely candidate. And stuff seemed off. And I talk a little bit about this in the video. I don't go too in depth because a lot of it had to do with like certain family members having seemingly way too much DNA shared or way too little DNA shared. And the biggest way to confirm these types of things is to find descendants of the family and get them to DNA test. And that was big part of why it was so difficult. I was able to find descendants of Charles Edward McNatt and get in touch with them. The response I got was after I'd already figured out Charles wasn't the father. So I didn't really need to ask for confirmation DNA at that point. But it was like, if I could get a descendant to do that, I could confirm it. Then once the birth certificate came in and we had the name, we had the DNA showing that Rachel Matthews was definitely, that matched up because we had all these matches showing that, Charles McNatt. I say this in the video, and one of the reasons why that Charles McNatt seemed to be the most likely hypothesis based on everything at that before we had the birth record was because it turned out that Smith Fuller Neighbors is related to Charles McNatt in two ways. He's a first cousin once removed, which is what we're seeing on screen, first cousin once removed, but then he's also a second cousin once removed because you can see that Charles Edward McNatt, well, they're first cousins once removed through the Matthews family, and then their second cousins once removed through the McNatt family. So you have to look, I think it was over here. Yeah, it was over here. So this was that there's so related in two ways. So basically what was going on was there were descendants of Charles McNatt's siblings who were matches. And that was why it seemed so likely to be Charles. But then we had these more distant cousins matching at the same amount that we were getting at these descendants of what seemed to be Charles, or the aunts and uncles of Robert. But that wasn't the case. So once we had the name for Smith Fuller, I built out the tree. I found descendants. I tried to get in touch with them. I heard from one of them. They responded a little bit and then never heard back again after a while, which does happen. A lot of times with families, you talk to them and then someone in the family goes, don't do this. This is scammy and don't, it happens. And so I'm guessing that might've been what happened here. But I was hoping that they would DNA test. And I even said, if you can do a DNA test or get another family member, that will help tell us. And, that was what I was hoping for, but they never responded. So the next best thing was to try to contact descendants of Smith Fuller neighbor's brother. Tried to do that. None of them responded. So the next best thing was, well, can I at least identify cousins through the neighbor's side? Because we already had the Matthews side, but on the neighbor's side, they hadn't been in Pennsylvania as long. There weren't as many descendants in Pennsylvania. And so if I could find descendants from this side as well, having both that on this side, of the neighbor's side and of the Matthews side, that at least made it so that it would confirm to either Smith Fuller neighbors or technically his brother as well. Because I don't say this in the video, even though I say it's confirmed, it's like 99% confirmed, because it could be that for whatever reason, Bertha decided to write Fuller neighbor's name down, and it could have been his brother who was the actual father. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think, once we had the DNA, it was like, okay, he probably was the father, the biological father. But basically, once we confirmed DNA matches through the neighbor's side, because we already had matches through the Matthews side, that basically, that made it so that the only two possibilities are Smith Fuller neighbors and Charles neighbors. And being that Smith Fuller neighbors is the person whose name is actually written on the birth certificate, and he's the actual brother-in-law of Bertha, it seemed that's most likely the case. But me being me, the I don't know what I'd call it exactly, but just, always having the mindset of there's always a possibility I'm wrong. There's always the possibility of something else. Kind of the thought process of, if you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras, but still consider the possibility that maybe that is a zebra. You can't rule it out, sort of thing. So the confirmation I would want to confirm this purely would be to either get a descendant of Charles or a descendant of Smith Fuller to do a DNA test. And that would put us up from 99% to 100%. But not something I mentioned in the video, but I guess I figured I'd mention it here. Weeping Scorpion, have to go, guys. You said that 12 minutes ago, so I'm sure you're already gone, but thank you for joining, Weeping Scorpion. Matt Blash, hi, Jarrett. Cool to catch a live. Super grateful for your content. I'm from South Australia, and I'm 3/4 Prussian, but have really struggled with finding records from pre-voyage to Australia, 1840s to 1860s. Interesting, yeah. And that Australia is something I have very little experience researching, but the place that I will always look is the Family Search Wiki. So I don't know if that's something that you've done yet, but if not, let's take a quick peek. So for those who are not familiar, Family Search, the website run by the Church of the Latter-day, or the Church of the Latter-day Saints of Jesus Christ, or the LDS Church. I can never remember the exact proper way to say it. But they have this website, Family Search, and in that website, they have what they call their wiki, which is an amazing place to find out where you can find records and more information. So here we have the Australia genealogy page. You can do just straight up Australia online genealogy records, which will take you there to a whole list of all sorts of records. So this may be the place that you get help, right, just in the general Australia. They also have online research help. So you can go in and there's a whole community of people to help. And then they have like a getting started page on just, if you're getting started. I'm guessing this page won't be as helpful for you based on what you said. But then you also have the map where you can get further into where do you want to go. So South Australia, you get even more information, and they have specific South Australia online genealogy records. So not just Australia, but South Australia. So this is a great place to go in and see where are records, where are they being held. So like you can see here, they have all these police gazettes. A large amount of them are on MyHeritage. You also have some on Find My Past, which this is a question I also get a lot of times is people ask, do you get memberships to every database, or should, which ones are the best one for me, or what, and a lot of times this is actually a good way to kind of find out, is it a good idea for you to possibly try out a membership for another site, because maybe they have a lot of records that are helpful for you. So, Find My Past, they seem to have South Australia government gazettes. So maybe that's something that's very helpful. Maybe it's even more than what MyHeritage has. Then we also see Ancestry has stuff. But you also see on here, if it has the $, that means you have to pay for it. But then some stuff like here at Family Search, we have corner inquests. So yeah, but you're talking about records from pre-voyage to Australia, 1840s to 1860s. So, here's, some stuff, obviously, yeah, right in that 1840s, 1860s era. There's a lot of other stuff in the, so lots and lots of stuff you might be able to get out of it, even immigration records. So not sure if this is something you've already seen, but if not, I hope that this is quite helpful for you. A.T. Goldsmith, since Cornwall was mentioned, the recent Ancestry DNA update gave me 2% Cornish, which nobody else in my immediate family got. But my 5 times great-grandmother was born in Devon, so I think that's the source. Very interesting. That could be it. I have access to Max's DNA results. Oh, wait. He's not on Ancestry, though. I thought about getting Max to test on Ancestry, but, we had MyHeritage sponsor the video, and it was like, let's see if we can just use that to figure it all out. And we were able to. So yeah, I won't be able to see if Max has Cornish in there. And none of the DNA kits we had for Max's family were part of the update. So all of them still have the waiting on the update thing too, unfortunately. But very cool, very cool. Yeah, the new update on Ancestry that A.T. Goldsmith's talking about, for those who don't know, Ancestry just rolled it out, and I've been hearing a lot of praise about it. A lot of new population groups they've rolled out. I know a big one that I've been hearing about, which I've been checking out on my kits, is the Sephardic Jewish readings that they've rolled out, which seem to be okay. I still need to. I think what I might do at some point is I might do a stream where we go through the white paper for the new results and talk about it, which would be really cool. And maybe I'll have to contact them and see if I can get one of the people that wrote the white paper to be on stream with me and talk about it too. That'd be even cooler. Antonio Delelse, I don't know if I pronounced that right. I hope I did. Very Italian sounding name. I am EV13-2 and I am Italian. Well, I guess there we go. You should do a whole genome sequence test, as EV13 is too big. Yeah, EV13 is probably a 23andMe haplogroup, which, if I remember correctly from when that question was originally asked on a previous stream, that was the detail. From Burke. I think that was the detail, was you'd said it was from 23andMe. But yes, I agree with you, Antonio. A whole genome sequence or a big Y test through Family Tree DNA. Obviously, if you can't do the big Y because, expenses, it is expensive. A whole genome sequencing is expensive as well, although I think you can get that done a lot cheaper. But still, big Y testing, either way, that's a great way to go. Hello, Vanout Drentha. Very cool. Hey, Rob. where my paternal line comes from. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. He released that on Tuesday. Okay. All right, Neek Brokema, what's the reason that Ancestry or MyHeritage only tests 22 chromosome pairs? Is testing the 23rd XXXY chromosome pair difficult? Well, I think they technically do test the X. And if you download the raw data, you should have readings for the X in the raw data. So like I think I'm pulling it up right now, the Steve Morse website. Okay, yeah, and I have to try to find it. I think there's the Steve Morse website, for those who are not familiar with it, is a user-generated website by Stephen P. Morse, which has tons of genealogy-related tools and helpful things. And some of the stuff he has is the genetic stuff, where basically you can take your raw data from other websites and use it to get data that they don't tell you about. Most specifically, the Y chromosome haplogroups. I don't know if it still works or not, too. I haven't used it in forever. But basically, some of these sites, they actually test for this. It's part of the SNPs they do. They just don't give you any information on it. I don't know if they still do. So like I know Ancestry for a long time, if you download your raw data, you'd have Y chromosome STRs and SNPs as part of it, just not many. But why they don't test for it, I think for one, to do the in-depth testing to get really good stuff out of it, I think it is probably either more an advanced SNP chip or it's a separate SNP chip. Honestly, don't know. That's probably something I should look more into. But with the X chromosome, it is kind of a disappointing thing that family tree DNA is really the only place you can utilize that, or GEDmatch, which I think GEDmatch is another place where you can tell. Let me actually see. Test X chromosome. Yeah, so no, not that. So with IOSGG, the International Society of Genetic Genealogy, on their wiki, they should have maybe it's this. There's a comparison of okay, yeah. So here's the number of X chromosome SNPs that they're testing. And so we can see the first test, 23andMe, is testing 16,530. Then Family Tree DNA, 16,271. Ancestry is 28,892, labeled as chromosome 23, plus 440 SNPs label is chromosome 25 that are either from chromosome X or from the pseudo-autosomal regions of the Y chromosome. Then 29,694 for MyHeritage, and then 15,028 for living DNA. Now, to utilize those outside of family tree DNA, I don't remember if you can do that through GEDmatch. I don't remember. This is one of those things that I haven't gone too in depth into with the X chromosome stuff in a while. But yeah, so they're testing all that, and then you can see too, number of mitochondrial DNA SNPs, number of Y chromosome DNA SNPs, and then number of autosomal DNA snips. Now, I do not know how recent these are. This was compiled by Tim Jansen, who Tim is an amazing genetic genealogist. I met him at Roots Tech just this last year, I want to say. But I've known about him and he's known about me, I think. Because when we met at the Jed Match booth in it was one of the guys that works at Verigen that was introducing us, and he was like, "Oh, Tim, do you know about Jared? Jared, do you know about Tim?" And I think we both were like, "Oh yeah, it's great to finally meet," which happens a lot in the genealogy community these days. So yeah, yeah. So I don't know the answer to your question. I know that MyHeritage put out something at some point that about the X chromosome, and I don't remember if they. For some reason, I remember them saying something along the lines of they didn't plan to do anything with it. But that could be wrong. I don't remember. I don't know. So yeah, hopefully that was helpful, at least in discussing the topic, even if it didn't necessarily answer it. Rob, I need to do some DNA research one day. My grandmother's grandmother was an illegitimate child. Yeah, definitely be interesting to see. And, I mean, as a, for a second great grandmother, it is kind of, somewhat distant, but, with assuming she's coming from a Dutch ancestry, as well, like I think most of your family seems to. I'd be very interested to see how that would work out, because I feel like I know a lot of Dutch who've DNA tested, and of course the records are immaculate, as you very well know. I'm gonna make this a little bigger, and if anyone wants to check this out, because you may not be familiar, I'll go ahead and throw it in chat. Throw the link in chat for you all. For all them all. Destruction Cat, I'm so happy my family members that we found through Ancestry matches were looking for us too, and so we talk almost every day. That is awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of cousins over my time of connecting with cousins that I've formed stronger friendships with, just because of our mutual love of genealogy. So it's given us a lot more to chat about. When I first started doing genealogy, my goal was to find my cousins, because the biggest thing for me was the fact that I was this redhead in a family where I only had one other cousin who was a redhead, a second cousin of mine. For the most part, all of my other cousins were mostly kind of dark olive skin, darker hair kind of sort of thing. And I always just wanted to find, where's the red hair coming from? And so I always was like, one day I'll find a family of mine that's like, they're all redheads. And I did actually find that the large part of my Moscow family, not from Moscow, but with the name Moscow, from Amsterdam, and before that, Germany. Prussia, really, I guess, or Polish-Lithuanian common, or Lithuanian-Polish. I can never remember. Is it the LPC or the PLC? Someone comment. Let me know. I always screw that up. But yeah, when you find those cousins that are also into it and looking for you, I don't know how close of a match you're looking at, because the way that you word it, it does kind of sound like it's like a close cousinship or a close relationship, much closer than, like third cousin sort of thing where you're both interested in genealogy. But yeah, very cool. I believe he wants Prussian records. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. All right, Anna Tommaso, I've just recently got some records from Tasmania. It was pretty easy. I have Irish prisoners shipped to Van Diemen's Land. Very cool. Interesting. Yeah, I have a lot of cousins in Australia and New Zealand, but haven't really done much research into that because a lot of them were really easy to find. So, once I found those cousins, I didn't research too much into the family life there. Anyone had the MyHeritage update? And I'm going to take a quick look and see if any of my estimates, because I feel like I might have heard from some folks. No, coming soon. Coming soon. Coming soon. Coming soon. All coming soon. Coming soon. Yeah, it doesn't look like I have any new updates on my end. So, yeah. Matt, I haven't looked at this site. I'm sure it will have more information to investigate. Thanks. Yes, I have the voyage list and birthplaces in Prussia of many of my great-great-great-grandparents. That's good to hear. Well, happy hunting for you. That's gonna hopefully, if it works out well, as it does for whenever things work out well for a genealogist, it usually means you're gonna have a few nights of staying up really late going down rabbit holes of records. Daniel M, is it worth saving your MyHeritage sample in their biobank? They're wanting me to cough up 129 pounds for the privilege. I already pay a membership. Seems expensive. Yeah, I saw that about the whole biobank thing. I probably wouldn't be the best person to answer that, to be completely honest, because I only saw it and I remember doing a quick read. And for me, it was like, I don't really see a big use in that for me, but I need to research it further. So that's definitely something I need to put on my list. But I did see that announcement, which I thought was interesting because I know like I think 23andMe has like an auto save thing. And then actually was it Family Tree DNA that also announced something like that too? Or maybe I know Family Tree DNA keeps samples too. I need to look into that stuff. Sometimes I don't look into a lot of stuff with consumer DNA tests that's going on, just because I'm so focused on the genealogy side of things. But I definitely need to keep up with all that. Okay. Jenny Faria, my DNA shows 14.1 Sephardic Jewish in North Africa, 23.8 from Iberian Peninsula, 6% of Middle Eastern. Okay, very cool. It sounds like you tested through MyHeritage. That sounds like MyHeritage readings, because I don't think with Ancestry's new readings they give Sephardic Jewish as Sephardic Jewish in North Africa. I think they just say Sephardic Jewish. So interesting. Yeah. Alan, Matt Blash, their websites, gazetteers that have town name equivalents for any name changes in that area. So, all right. Talking about that still. All right, okay, here's an interesting question. Robert Skurlock II, Genie Vloggers, Genie Accurate. On my grandfather's side, I'm related to Reverend Burroughs from Salem. It says William the Conqueror is related through his father, which is the branch I descend from. So the way that I like to say it is that, well, actually, the way I like to say it, I don't know why I always start sentences like that. It varies. It's very similar to basically any family tree you find anywhere. You need to vet it, and it's going to vary. There are going to be some stuff that you'll find on Genie that is extremely accurate, very well sourced, and you can trust it. It's accurate. There's other parts of it that aren't as accurate, and you just need to analyze whatever's going on. So, like with what you're talking about, related to Reverend Burroughs through William the Conqueror, well, to confirm that, you'd have to go through that lineage that connects you to go and actually confirm it. And this is something that I do in a lot of my videos. Sometimes I take a little bit of leeway and I'll do kind of more of a spot check, just kind of checking along the line, seeing that everything is sourced. Sometimes I do a bit more in depth. A lot of times I have other genealogists review my trees. In fact, I think I've told this story a few times, but when I started doing my reactions, it was because I had a video set to come out that I had another genealogist review, and they found that there was an error in my research, which I had put on Genie, and thus we had to change Genie because there was an error there. So even though, there's going to be stuff on there that's going to be super accurate, there's going to be stuff that's not as accurate. So no matter where you go on Genie and no matter where you find trees, even if you go onto WikiTree, which, their big thing is that they're the most accurate collaborative family tree out there because they, force the sourcing and all that, still doesn't mean that there's that everything's going to be 100% on there. And it's like if you find a book about a family, there can be incorrect information in there too. I know like the JJ McCullough video where he talks about Wikipedia, he kind of goes on and on about books. But I remember that was one of the things that like was one of my things I didn't like about that video was that it was like, well, books can be just as wrong as Wikipedia. It's the same sort of thing. It's just they're done in different ways. So definitely didn't agree with that video of JJ's. But just, it's that same idea of no matter what you get, to check it. And so if you find something on Genie and you're not quite sure about it, check it. But I would definitely say there's some stuff on there that is highly accurate. There's some stuff on there that's basically just straight up fantasy. I mean, that's one of the reasons why Genie also has the curator system, which I'm a curator on Genie, so that we can help try to get rid of the errors, help make it so that, if we have a profile that's very strong. So like, William the Conqueror on Genie, the stuff around him is probably very, very highly sourced. And it's, the places where people's eyeballs are the most, that's probably going to be the stuff that's the highest accuracy per se, based on the available documentation. Not always necessarily, but, you just have to go through, see what's available. And then, you can research stuff yourself and see, is what they have correct or is it wrong? Hopefully that was helpful. Valdemies, I also have several illegitimate ancestors at the second grade level, and I've been scratching my head trying to solve these with DNA. Yeah, when you're at the second great grandparent level, that's where it starts getting really, really tough, because then you're looking at, the connections you have of cousins at that level or your third cousins. And that's getting into the area where you're going to have cousins that share so little DNA or no DNA. It's going to be very difficult to identify them. But this is where the advanced techniques can become very helpful. So a big one, obviously, auto clustering or the leads method. Basically, what you do is you cluster your matches in a way so that you can at least identify what sides are they coming from, and then you just kind of slowly work your way to figure out what's coming from what. Other things, obviously, are if you can get more family members to test, especially, if you can't get your parents to test, or if you don't have older generations in the family to test, which that would be the best way to go. If you have a parent or a grandparent that's the side that this illegitimate ancestor is through, well, get them to test. And now you're not looking at a second great grandparent DNA test level. Now you're looking at a great grandparent. Or if you have your grandparents test, then it's their grandparent. So, obviously the closer you get, that's a great way. But if you don't have that available to you, but you have siblings who can test, or maybe you have one sibling and a cousin, or, there's various ways that you can do what's known as visual phasing, which is another advanced technique, which I briefly talked about in my video for Max's family. It's something I did for the research. It was one of the reasons why I had Max and his brother and his sister all do a DNA test, because do that and then I can visually phase it. So here we have the visual phasing that I did on chromosome 2 for Max's family. So here we have Max being compared to his brother. Here we have Max being compared to his sister. And here we have Max's brother and Max's sister being compared. And this is showing where they're matching on chromosome 2. So wherever you see yellow on top, that's telling you that there is a half identical match. So what that means is, at every place on your DNA, you have base pairs, right? You have an A, a T, C, or G, but technically it's AA or AT or CC or GC or GG, something like that. You have base pairs. Well, when a base pair, that's 2, one's from mom and one's from dad. So a half identical match means you're matching only one of the two base pair, or one of the two of the base pair. Or if you're matching both, a full identical region, that's where you get the green. If you're not matching any, that's where you get the red. So the top part is showing you the SNPs, the single nucleotide polymorphisms, which is really just a fancy way to say each specific spot on the DNA. It's very specific spots that have a reason because they're identified to indicate ancestral or different things. But you can see, like here, this big chunk, it has a ton of red. And because of that, underneath, it's black. And that black means that it's not considered a matching segment. When it's this bluish purple, whatever, that's a matching segment. Now, this is done through GEDmatch's one-to-one comparison. So it does an advanced comparison view to give you this chromosome breakdown. You don't get this with any site. Like Ancestry doesn't even have a chromosome browser. That's something that everyone's been begging for. 23andMe made it so that you can't really access it anymore. You can see the visual of it, but you can't get the in-depth data. And then for Family Tree DNA and MyHeritage, they do the chromosome browser stuff, but they don't tell you half identical region or full identical region. But it's very important because what you do is once you compare the three siblings, which that's the best way to do visual phasing is having three siblings, you compare them and then you identify the recombination point. Well, what's a recombination point? It's where it changes. So we look here, nothing changes up until this point. So that's the first one we see. But then we see here, there's a change at this point right here, right? It goes from all of these red to all of a sudden we have a big half identical region, right? So that's a change right here. That's a recombination point. And then same thing here, another recombination point. There's a change from half identical to full identical. And so you identify who is that recombination happening in. Well, how do you do that? You see which sibling is that happening to both times. And in both times, that's to Max's sister. So M and C, C is Max's sister. So the change happens when we see the comparison of M and C and J and C. So when we put C up there, then we do the next thing at this next one. Okay, there's a break here and there's a break here. Who is that? That's J, Max's brother. So we put a J there. Down here, we see another break and another break. Who's that? Max himself. And so we find all of these recombination points, we label them, and then we use matches that we know of through other lines, so first cousins and second cousins and whatever, to identify which side of that family that's from. And you start coloring in these areas. And I'm not going to get too in-depth into it because this is a very advanced form of genetic genealogy. In fact, I would probably say this is one of the most advanced techniques for people to do. Even some of the most advanced genetic genealogists have a very difficult time doing this. And even myself, I mean, for a lot of like when I did this comparison between Max and his siblings, the chromosome 1, there's a lot of blank spaces I couldn't fill out. So there's a lot of things that can make it very difficult. But in the end, what you want is something like this, where now we have, this is Max's chromosome 2, Max's brother's chromosome 2, and Max's sister's chromosome 2. And we can see what part of that chromosome was inherited from specifically which grandparent. So for Max, his maternal grandfather is who he inherited the majority of his chromosome 2 from on his maternal side. Because remember, base pairs, you get stuff from mom, stuff from dad. Well, his maternal chromosome 2 and his paternal chromosome 2. Well, this was very helpful because then that means that if I find people who are matching Max on chromosome 2, and I can see that they're through his mother's side, and they're not matching this one little spot on chromosome 2 that's coming from his maternal grandmother, then I can confidently say that they are coming from Max's maternal grandfather, who was the person that was adopted, which means that we now know this has to be through that side. And so we isolate that. And so that's the biggest benefit of this, is you're identifying what part of your chromosome is being inherited from which grandparents. And thus you can then compare your DNA matches to confirm which grandparent that is through. Now, there is some difficulty in the comparison part, because if you don't have a way to tell specifically, oh yeah, that's definitely a match through mom, or that's definitely a match through dad, then it at least breaks it down from 4 possible grandparents that the line is through to only 2. You know, if it's someone who's matching Max and they're over this part of the segment and I can't figure out is it maternal or paternal, well, I at least know, okay, it's either going to be the paternal grandmother because it's red, or the maternal grandfather because it's orange. So I can rule out maternal grandma and paternal grandpa. So there you go. So, all right, I'm going to try to jump up and catch up to chat. Yeah, I totally lost my place. So hopefully I didn't miss anything too crazy. Let me see. Okay, there we go. Okay, that's where I last saw it. There we go. Thank you. Polish Lithuanian comment. Well, PLC. Okay. Okay, let me answer this. Charles Harvey, hi from Nova Scotia, Canada. I have a DNA match on my heritage that says 1,030 centimorgans. It says half uncle and his 2 sons. It says parent, first cousin. That's okay. I'm a little confused at the way you're wording it. I have a DNA match on my heritage that says 1,030 centimorgans. It says half uncle. So it's estimating that he's a half uncle, which it could be other stuff possibly too, but yeah. And his 2 sons, it says parent first. Oh, okay. And his 2 sons, parent first. I don't know why it says parent. But yeah, so basically what your question is on my heritage, it's saying that this guy is a half uncle because he has 1,030 centimorgans, and then it says first cousin. Now, what it's saying is a relationship estimate. And we'll probably jump back to this visual phasing thing in a second, but just because this is really easy to show. So here, this is the shared centimorgan project. And this is a way to see all of the possibilities. So at 1,050 centimorgans, these are the possible ways that he could be related to you. So this guy that's matching could be a grandparent, could be a great aunt or an uncle, could be a first cousin, could be a half aunt or an uncle, could be a half niece or nephew, could be a great niece or nephew. You know, these are all the different possibilities. Now, obviously, based on age and all that, you can kind of help rule certain things out. But then with the kids, they're 5'10 and 5'02. Okay, so basically close, about same. So 5'10, 5'02. And then we see, okay, so here's all of the possibilities with that as well. So could be first cousin, could be second cousin, could be a first cousin once removed, could be a first cousin once removed up this way. So if that person is a great aunt or uncle, or what I guess would be a great uncle, then that would all, that makes, so there's a lot of possibilities. So when you see those on my heritage or ancestry, or anything like that, it's just an estimator where it's taking this information here and oversimplifying it for people. And this is the hardest thing about DNA tests, is how much they oversimplify, because in my belief, I think sometimes, like in this case, they oversimplify it to the point that it actually causes more confusion than help. Because they oversimplify it because it's like, well, this is the most likely that we think. But in all reality, I mean, look at this. 90%, all of these have about the same probability of a relationship. So, yeah. So hopefully that answers that. Let's, I want to see if there's anyone talking about the visual phasing or asking questions about that. Okay, Drea, I feel like you might have talked about this before, but have you ever used a GEDmatch super kit for any research? So I have not used a GEDmatch super kit technically for any research. I mean, I've made super kits, and I haven't really found that they've been like super useful in any way that it's like I use them a lot. For anyone who's unfamiliar, a super kit on GEDmatch is where you've tested at multiple sites. So you've tested at Ancestry and 23andMe and MyHeritage, or all of them. It could be just 2, or it could be, all 5 of the main ones, or even more. But the super kit is where, if you've tested at multiple sites, you download the raw data from each one of those sites you've tested at, You upload it to GEDmatch, and then you do the super kit tool, which merges all of those tests together to create one big super kit. So each website is testing largely the same DNA markers, but each website is also testing unique markers that only they test. And because of that, each site has stuff that the others don't. And if you do the super kit, it then adds all of those together. So you then get one big super kit. And then you can compare that to the database at GEDmatch. And the place that's most helpful is just when you compare yourself to other DNA kits. If the DNA kits are from different websites, it will skew the results. So if you compare raw DNA from 23andMe to raw DNA from Ancestry DNA, there's going to be a bunch of SNPs that both of those companies tested that the other one didn't, and those SNPs are just not going to be useful because there's no comparison. So you can only compare what they're both testing. So that's where it's very helpful. Okay, keeping along. Nick, I was thinking about your live stream where you tried to break users' brick wall. Would it be fun if users gave you a solvable and interesting puzzle from their tree, for example? So if you're talking about my stream last week on the main channel, I actually wasn't trying to necessarily really break brick walls, because trying to break a brick wall in an hour or two live stream is crazy. Like, for me to do that, it would have to be one of those brick walls where it's a brick wall just because of a lack of knowledge, or just a lack of knowledge. Just one of those things of, I can't figure this out. And it's like, oh, well, you just didn't realize that this document set exists, or you just didn't realize how to search this database, or, something simple like that, which I think most of the people that watch my channel, especially the live streams, are my more hardcore genealogy users who have the brick walls that need much, they're probably not going to fall into that category of they just didn't really know. Some of them might. So when I did that, I actually said it on stream a couple of times of, don't send me your hardest brick walls. It'd be better to send me things of like, I have a great grandparent. I'd love to see you build their family tree online because their tree is so interesting, or this ancestor, or this relative, or, something like that. But I do accept brick walls for that. We're going to try it again. I don't know if we'll try it again next week. We might. I think I had another idea of something I might want to do for next week. We'll see. But yeah. Retro Rob Casa. Morning all. Morning, Retro Rob. Thank you for joining us. All right. Let's see. Keeping it up with chat. Jose, I wonder what chromosome was found in my sister's DNA when she got the Irish. Also, I'm glad I can join the stream on my birthday. Scottish and Welsh reading through my heritage. Happy birthday, Jose. Thank you for joining on your birthday. I feel honored to have you. Very cool to have me part of have my stream as part of your birthday celebration. Very cool. Very cool. All right, let's see. See a lot of people chatting with each other. All right. Well, since people are chatting with each other, something I guess I haven't really done a ton, I guess, talking about just the stuff with what I found in the family tree for Max and his family. And I don't know how much longer I'll stream, but I guess what I'll do now is I'm going to do a little bit of preview of what we might be able to expect coming up in some future episodes on Max's family. So obviously the focus has largely been on Max's maternal side. So the first episode being on Max's maternal grandmother, Virginia. Then the next episode being Max's maternal grandfather, Robert. And so then next week, we're going to be getting into Max's father's side, his paternal side, the Miller side, and the Hunt side. Did I say next week? It's not going to be next week. It's going to be a minute. It's going to be a little bit, but just a little preview of some things. So, we're going to be diving into the World War II ancestry for Max's grandfather, Ross. But we're also going to be diving into some of the World War II stories for some of the cousins in Max's family, which very, very interesting story. Actually did some FOIA requests for all of this, including with Max's grandfather. Actually got that after, got some of those requests fulfilled after I met with Max and his family. So there's going to be some stuff that even Max has not seen once that episode comes out. And then we're going to be diving into a bunch of the different sides in the family. So just kind of open that up so you can see I've been doing a lot of research. Yeah, wondering how much I should reveal. So okay, but yeah, so some of these interesting lines, and one of the interesting things that I'll kind of talk about here is when we were doing it. So I actually, I don't want to show that. That might show too much. So this is one of the lines that I'll be talking about in a future episode. And one of the really interesting things was when I was telling Max's family all about this, it turns out that his brother has a really good friend who they're pretty sure is related through this same family, which was really, really cool. So I don't remember if they confirmed that for sure. I need to ask Max about that. But I remember like when I told him about that, Max's brother like pulled out the phone and started texting his friend. He's like, I think he's my cousin now. So that was really cool. Jarrett, if you do what you did last week, I'll give you one of my more interesting ancestors instead of a brick wall. Good to hear. Yeah, I think I probably will. GEDmatch is making me quite confused. I don't know how to read it as each calculator gives me wildly different results. Is GEDmatch really useful for beginners? So GEDmatch is very useful. Unfortunately, you're using the least useful part of GEDmatch, the admixture calculators. The admixtures are useless in general, not just GEDmatch. I know this is something I harp on all the time. I know people love the percentages. I kind of get why. I don't fully understand why people do obsess about them when they get into the family tree side of stuff as much, other than, just not being happy that some of them are all off. But the GEDmatch calculators becomes a game of pick your own ethnicity. When you look at each calculator and you look at the results that it gives you, just think about the fact of what are the populations that it's defining in each one. And you'll notice in each one, it's defining things wildly different, and not just defining you wildly different. I mean, what are the populations that they have as options that you can get? And they're very wildly different, to the point that it's like, well, what if this test calls me, Western Caucasus, then what does this other test define it as? Because it doesn't say anything about Caucasus. It doesn't say anything about Western Asia. The closest thing maybe is Middle Eastern or something. It's like all of them are wildly different. And a lot of them are very, very old and basically, what would be the best terminology for it? Beyond just useless. Why can't I think of the word? It's like on the tip of my tongue. It's literally on the tip of my tongue. But basically, it's out of date is a way to say it. Even the guy that made the J test admixture on there did a blog post like in 2019 or something. So 5 years ago, saying then in 2019, this is way out of date. Defunct. That is exactly the word that was on the tip of my tongue that I just could not get. Thank you, Drea. So when it comes to the admixtures, it just becomes a game of pick your own ethnicity. But the only use of the admixtures is to give you a general idea to get started. Beyond that, once you start looking at a bunch of different admixtures, unless you have some very specific question about one admixture, it it just becomes too confusing. So it makes sense that you would get even more confused by running it through all the various calculators. And just the fact you use the term calculators, how I know that, that's what's going on here. So I would definitely say that GEDmatch is extremely useful. The admixture calculators just are not that useful. They're a great place to start. That's it. You do the admixture if you're an adoptee and you don't know your ancestry, or maybe it's something not even adoptee, maybe it's some other reason you don't know your ancestry. That's a place to start, and then you can use your DNA matches to build try to identify things further and get a much better idea. Because even with the admixtures, they just give you a generalized, maybe this region or maybe that region. But even if you can't identify family through your DNA matches, you can still get a better idea through your DNA matches of where you may actually be coming from. Because let's say you look at a bunch of your DNA matches and you see that tons of them are 100% coming from Georgia. Like their entire ancestry is Georgian, and maybe some Kazakhstan and maybe some other whatever. But then you see a bunch of that and it's like, oh, wow, it's not just maybe Western Caucasus, but maybe it's actually Georgian ancestry that I have or something like that. So it's like, even if you can't get a much more defined thing through the a actual defined ancestry through your family tree, you can use those DNA matches to get a much better idea of things through admixture as well. And a lot of more advanced stuff to figure out. So yeah, so hopefully that's helpful. Oh, very cool. Iceland on the ancestry ethnicity. Yeah. The limited budget is the hardest part about DNA testing, and maybe a reason why whole genome sequencing may be a better option for you than the big Y. I don't know how cheap Dante is, which I know that's what Antonio was talking about. I used Nebula whole genome sequencing. Both, I've heard issues about both companies. So, I don't know if I'd recommend one over the other, but I can say I've done Nebula. I was decently happy with the results. I've had things happen since that I wasn't happy about that don't deal with the results, but something else with the stuff, but that doesn't matter. But basically, yeah, those are the main two, Dante or Nebula. And I think with Nebula, they have a $100 option whole genome sequence. I just don't remember what the limitation is with that. But then they also have one that's like $300, I think. And then they have the really expensive one that's $1,000. That's like a lot of 100 read through or something like that. Yeah. So a little bit of a preview of what you can expect. And then let's see. Which side was it through? Yeah, through the pines. Was it through the pines? Yeah. So nothing to see here. All right. Next time you do research for viewers, I might give you one of my unfinished finish lines. That's unfinished finish lines to see how you do with finish records, or maybe your relative who moved to America. That could be interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how. I've never researched Finnish ancestry. So I have no clue. I have done research in Danish records, done a little bit in Swedish records. But yeah, I mean, the Danish records, the research I did for Falster Island to research Drew Durnill's family tree, which if you didn't know, I did Drew Durnill's family tree as well. So go watch that episode if you haven't yet. Yeah, that's the most I've done that's closest to Finnish. I mean, I guess technically maybe you can say some of the Russian Empire records that I've done are closer, but yeah. So yeah, you'll definitely have to do that. That's on my main channel though. So I stream on both my channels, my main channel and the this channel, the secondary channel as I like to call it, although I wouldn't be surprised if one day my reactions channel overtakes the main channel, but yeah. So interesting. Finnish records are mostly in Swedish, I think. Well, most Finnish records are in Swedish, but looking for them, you have to use Finnish search terms, so it might be tough. And just the fact that there is a difference between Finnish and Swedish search terms, that's already got me. That's beyond my knowledge. That's beyond my knowledge. I think that's one of the beauties of genealogy, which is something a lot of people don't realize, is that there is so much history. There's so many population groups and so much nuance. And every person that I feel like I've covered, or every population group that I've covered in some video that I've done, especially my reactions on DNA stuff, there's always somebody who comes in the comments of, you really need to do your research and you need to learn about this really unique, specific historical thing that not many people know, or you need to learn this. And it's like all these little things that it's like, I get it that you grew up with that, and you know that really well, especially if it's tied to something of your ancestry. But the amount of people that I feel like this, I'm better than thou because I knew it and you didn't, I find it hilarious because I'm constantly learning new things. And I feel like I'm always very forward about, well, I know a little bit about this, or I don't know that much about this, or I've never researched in this area. And it's just because that's the world of genealogy. I mean, I can't tell you how many genealogists that I've talked to that are, top tier echelon genealogists. And I start talking about the Portuguese Jewish community of Amsterdam and their minds are blown. And it's just because it's something that they've never even heard about. And it's, that's the thing. It's like, that's it. For me, that's like a big part of my world. But there's major genealogists who are like, wait, Portuguese Jews in Amsterdam? That's a thing? So, it's just a lot of people, I feel like, the know-it-all mentality of, that. And I always find the comments that say, how can you be a professional genealogist and not know this? The way that I like to define it is what a true professional genealogist is good at is not knowing things, but knowing how to find things. That's where you really that's the true genealogy bug, is knowing how to research, knowing how to find where you need to find. And that's the trick. I mean, a lot of my answers are very repetitive to people in a lot of these various streams, just because a lot of times it's kind of like, well, how do I find this? Oh, well, here's a source of how to find further sources, and that kind of thing. So yeah. Would you be willing to share your GEDmatch kit number? I wonder if we have any matches in common, LOL. You can find my GEDmatch kit number on Wikitree. I think I have it up there. And on top of that, if you didn't know, GEDmatch actually has a user lookup tool. You can look up granted, my user lookup tool is not under my main email and all that, so it maybe not quite as easy to find. But yeah, I think I have my kit number on Wikitree. So yeah, Karma, gotta love the gatekeepers. Yeah, and it's in my experience in genealogy, there's always been gatekeeping, and it is what it is, and before I ever became a professional genealogist, one of the reasons why I didn't take the leap was because I was worried that there was so much gatekeeping and things that it was like, well, I'm not going to be able to become a professional because, all the people that run this and all the people that run that, and, how am I going to get them to whatever? And then, slowly but surely I kind of learned like, oh, well, you don't have to be certified. You don't have to have a degree in genealogy. You don't have to have this. You just have to have the experience and the know-how. And I learned I did, so that'll be a story I'll have to do a video about. I actually, when I hit 100,000 subscribers on my main channel, I'm thinking I might do like an autobiography video on myself. And that'll be one of the stories I talk about, is how I became a professional. Because I've had people telling me since, 2013 or maybe even earlier that I should have been a professional, and I just kept holding back. Yoka, how can you be a professional athlete and not be good at boxing, ice skating, swimming, and gymnastics? Exactly. That's a good one. I should use stuff like that. I should use that as a response. Rob, I've done some Jewish research in Amsterdam. Very interesting, but not easy. Couldn't find records of birth. Yeah, it's a very different thing than other Dutch records. Obviously, post 1811, all the same, but pre 1811, it's a very for me, it's been years and years and years of that's what I've learned. It's like inventory 334 in the Amsterdam archives, the Portuguese Israelita Gementa, the Portuguese Jewish community. There, those are the records, and then it's you got to kind of learn, you got to know about the community and where to, what to look for and all that. And so someone like Rob, who has shown many, many times in many of my live streams, extremely adept at Dutch records. Often, I can't tell how many times you've beaten me at finding things that I'm like online trying to find. But a great example, doesn't matter how much expertise you have, there are always going to be other populations and other things that, even if tangentially related to things you research, you may only know a bit about, but to truly know it in full, it takes a lot. And that's the beauty of genealogy, is it truly plays up there's always something new to learn. So, good evening, John. Thanks for joining. Always good to have our Wikitreers in abundance. Anna, had to stop talking to maternal uncle about genealogy because he got mad if I found something that was different from what he put in his tree. Yeah, those are the worst. It's one thing to have gatekeeping in genealogy generally, but then to have a family member who's in a genealogy but is just completely stubborn and unwilling to hear out things that contradict their conclusions. Yeah, that's really annoying. Really annoying. Berke, in Turkey, it is quite difficult to build your family tree. Recently, I asked about my great-great-grandmother's birth certificate. They told me they could not find it. Yeah, and that's the biggest difficulty for genealogy, that we'll see more, I think we'll understand a lot more in the next 10 years, are the places where records just don't exist. Because right now, it's it's basically the thing that people know about is where records aren't digitized. Not necessarily if they aren't digitized or don't exist. It's just, I guess, better what records are digitized, because that's what we can access. But I think in 10 years, when we have a large majority or a much larger majority of records digitized, that's when a lot of the areas where it's like, okay, the records just don't even exist, those are going to stand out a lot more. And I know, I see it with so many population groups all the time, where it's, the records just aren't there. But over time, the hope is that as more gets digitized, more things will be found that you just didn't even realize. Turkey with a would you say great grandmother, then that's what leading back into the Ottoman Empire. And well, where could records in the Ottoman Empire be? They could be all over the place. So you never know, where maybe there's some set of record books that are sitting nowhere near Turkey that have all this information on Turkey. A great example, I did a whole video on the Terra Santa records we have from the Portuguese Jewish community of Amsterdam. And those were records of the Jewish community of Amsterdam starting in the 1600s, collecting money and sending money to the Jews living in Eretz Israel, in Jerusalem and Hebron, and all these other areas in Eretz Israel from the 1600s leading all the way up into the modern era. And we have the records of not only the people who donated the money in Amsterdam, but then we have the records and the names of who was living in Israel at that time and what money they received from the community. So we get this big glimpse into this community in Israel from the Amsterdam record. So it's, how many people would think, oh, we could learn about the 16th century and 17th century and 18th century Jewish communities of Israel through Amsterdam records. So it's, it's always that sort of thing of what could be hiding where. Karma, I have a coworker who's been teaching me about some of the things in their culture. I find it fascinating. Wish I knew more about my own. Yeah. That's definitely a big motivation, I think, for a lot of people in this is when you see somebody else learn about the fascinating ancestries that they have and the stories that go along with it and how it ties into history, most especially, at least in my opinion, that's what's so inspiring to be like, oh, I want to find that on my own. I get inspired from my own family tree because it's, my Dutch Jewish ancestry traces back to the 1500s and earlier on some lines. And I look at that and then I look at my Eastern European Jewish ancestry. And a lot of that, we're lucky if we can get into the 1700s. If we can identify an ancestor born in the 1700s, it's like, oh my gosh. Whereas with other ones, it's like, oh, well, the 1700s. Yeah, I get to that in almost all of my Dutch lines. So yeah, it's so crazy how it can really mix like that of what's, yeah. It applies to most people in Turkey. The documents are either lost or damaged. Yeah, and that's what happens with a lot of places, but that's where the hope is that maybe somewhere else there was another set of records, made up of that same information, or maybe even just that record set that was sent off somewhere for some reason, and then it was saved, and now someone just needs to find it. Not to mention records that are lost forever because of fires, floods, wars, etc. True. Yeah, that's the worst part. The stuff that's just not there. Think of the Library of Alexandria. That's what if we had all of that. Destruction Cat, haha. We have one and only match where you share 53.9 and me 10.3. LOL. Okay, so yeah, I mean it's some sort of tangential connection. And I heard Salt Lake is slowly taking back microfilms from libraries. Are they going to keep them or destroy them? I don't know. I didn't realize that. That's interesting. So this kind of goes into a little bit of recent genealogy history people may not know. And basically that is for years, not even years, decades, the best way to access a lot of the main records was to go to a family history library near you, which is run by your local Mormon church, your local LDS church, and it's free to go into. And they would have these microfilm and microfiche readers, and then they would have a bunch of microfilm on hand, and you could order microfilm to be sent to be copied and sent in from the main library in Salt Lake City. Then sometime in the past 10 years, I don't remember when exactly. I wanted to say it was like 2014, 2015, maybe even earlier than that. Family Search phased that program out of ordering microfilm and microfiche because at that point they had felt that their online presence was more than enough and that their plans were to digitize everything that was available microfilm and microfiche, so you can no longer order it. But whatever things were copied, whatever copies that those family history libraries had, they could hold on to. And so you can still go to your local family history libraries and see what they might have on hand. But they also have computers where you can go in and access stuff that you can't even access through their regular website, just at your home. You either have to be an LDS member or be at a family search library. But what I believe Ann is talking about, maybe you can correct me if you're talking about something else, is that they're starting to take back these microfilms for some reason. And I did not know about that. If that is the case, that's interesting. I do not know what they're planning to do with it. Hopefully not destroy them, because I don't know if they're just taking them back to destroy them. To me, it's like such a waste of time and energy when you can just leave it with those libraries and then at least, they have it on hand and it might be useful for someone, but I don't know. Maybe there's something else that they're doing. So interesting. If anyone knows anything about that, let me know. I'll have to look into that. Karma, they may be digitizing them before destroying them. That's what a lot of courthouses are doing with their records. So that's the other thing. I don't know, maybe they're only ordering back microfilms that are unique ones. But I don't know. I would think that they're ordering back the copies they made, but that could be wrong. Rob, I can find a lot of things in the Dutch archives, but there's much more I do not know. I am but an amateur, but I like searching. When I hear people are looking for something, I will look and find it. Yeah. I mean, you can call yourself an amateur, but you're much, much more well-versed than most people. So, yeah. Don't be too humble on that part. Just because you don't get paid doesn't mean you don't lack the expertise. So, all right. Well, I don't know if anyone is going to catch on to that little glimpse I gave there of what's going on, but if anyone's a big into big American history, maybe you did. But yeah, so yeah. I think I'm coming up on 2 hours or so. So if anyone has any questions, I guess let me know. I'm not sure how much longer I'll go, but I think I'm gonna end it here. I hear my puppy boy Jack over there making noises. Jackie boy, what you doing, baby? Come here. Come on, little dog. Oh, both of you are coming over. Hey, puppy boys. Doggy boys. Come here, Jack. Come here. You want to be... Petey got on stream last week, so Jack gets to be on stream this week. Oh, this little dog boy. Oh, little dog boy. Yeah, my little puppies. So yeah. Say hello to everybody, Jackie boy. Woof woof. Hello, everybody. So, all right, yeah, I guess I can end it here. What do you think, Jack? Should we end it here? Should we? Little dog boy. All right. Well, thank you everybody so much for joining. I hope you had a fun time. Okay, yeah, I'll let you down. Here you go, pup. Hope you had a fun time. Thank you, as always. If you have not gone to see the new Max Miller episode, go and watch that now on the main channel. If you didn't watch the first episode I did on his maternal grandmother, go watch that one and then go watch the second one. Although you don't have to watch that in that order. You can watch them in the other order and it's still just as fun. And then go watch a bunch of my other videos too. But thank you so much for joining. Next week, we'll see what we do on the main channel. Maybe we'll do some more building your family trees. I don't know, but thank you so much again. Don't know how many times I can say that, but thank you, thank you, thank you. I am Jarrett Ross, the Genie Vlogger, and I'm out.